Today's topic is slope of a line. Slope is defined as a value that represents how slanted a line is. The letter most commonly associated with slope is the letter M. When we calculate the slope of a line using a line that may be already graphed, we calculate the vertical change over the horizontal change, or the rise over run. When we talk about the equation of a line in y equals mx plus b form, the m, or the value that is in place of the m, would be the slope. Now, we might take a look at a couple examples of lines. A line with positive slope is a line going uphill from left to right. As I read each of these lines from left to right, I notice that they are all going uphill. On the other hand, if I have a line with negative slope, these would be represented by lines that are going downhill from left to right. As you notice, each of these lines, if they were graphed, as I read from left to right, is going downhill. A line with zero slope is a horizontal line. In this case, I have graphed the line y equals 4. This line has zero slope because if I was to walk on top of this line, I wouldn't be going uphill or downhill. I've got zero slope. There is a little trick to trying to remember whether or not this is zero slope. Using the line in the x-axis, I can draw the letter z, and that z stands for zero slope. Now, if I have a vertical line, and in this case I have graphed the line x equals -4, this line has undefined slope. Again, a trick can be used using the line and the y-axis. We can draw the letter u, and that u would represent undefined slope. So let's look at a couple of examples. The first example tells us to find the slope of the line that passes through the points 1, 1 and 3, 5. When we plot a point, we have to remember to plot x, y. X, y. So my first point, 1, 1, I'm going to go over 1 on the x, up 1 on the y. Point 3, 5, I'll go over 3 on the x, up 5 on the y. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plot or graph my line. Okay, I want to find the slope of that line. My slope equation tells me I need to find the rise over the run. So I want to figure out the rise from one point to the next. The way we do this is we always start with the point on the left-hand side. As we read left to right. So I'm going to start with this point. How much does it rise? So, if I take a look, and I rise up to my next point, I would have to go up 4 spaces. So my rise is 4. Now I want to calculate the run. I'm going to see how far over do I have to go. I go to the right 2 spaces, and since I went to the right, I'm going in the positive direction, and so my run would be equal to 2. So if I take a look at that fraction will reduce to 2 over 1, or just 2. And my final thing I take a look at is I say, I just calculated a positive slope. Should it be positive? And yes, this line is going uphill as we go from left to right. So it is a positive slope. Positive 2 is the slope of this line. Now if we take a look at a second example, it says find the slope of the line that passes through -4, 3, and 6, -5. Again, as we plot these points, we are plotting x, y. And as I go over -4 up 3, I put a point, and over 6, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, down 5, I put my second point. I draw my line, and again I'm going to calculate the rise over the run. The first point I am going to start at is the point on the left. That would be this point. This is the point I'll start at. So I'm going to calculate my rise. In this case, I'm falling, and I fall all the way down to there. Let's figure out how many spaces that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And because I fell 8, I actually went down -8 spaces. So my rise is -8. Now let's calculate the run. I'm going to the right, and let's figure out how many spaces that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I ran 10, so my run is 10. Now if I were to reduce that fraction, -8 over 10, is equal to negative 4 over 5. And my last check, is this line going downhill? Yes, it is, so therefore I should have a negative slope. I do, and therefore the slope of my line is negative 4/5. So we just saw a couple of examples where we calculated the slope by plotting the 2 points on the graph. Now, if a graph is not made available to us, there is a way to calculate the slope using algebra. And what we do is we use the formula. For a point labeled x1, y1, and another point labeled x2, y2, slope, or m, equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And as you can see, the top, or the numerator of that fraction, is really the vertical change, or the change in the y values, over the horizontal change, or the change in the x values. Now what we want to do is find the slope of a line that passes through these 2 points, but we want to do it using our slope formula. In order to do that, I notice my slope formula has these little subscripts, 2 and 1. What that means is I need to label my points. Since this is the first point that I see, I'm going to label that with x1, y1. That is the first, and those subscripts, all they mean is that's the first point I see. Second point I'll label x2, y2. Now, I want you to notice something very important. I'm going to be subtracting y2 minus y1. In the bottom, I have to keep the same order, x2 minus x1. So when I subtract, I can't flip-flop orders in the numerator and the denominator. I'll have things messed up. So now I'm just going to go through, and since I have my points labeled, I can just put those numbers in for those values in my formula. The y2 is negative 4, so I'll put negative 4 in. Minus y1 is 1 over x2 is 4 minus, and x1 is negative 6. And now I've just got some adding or subtracting to do. Negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5. 4 minus a negative 6 is a positive 10. And if I were to reduce that fraction, negative 5 over 10, I get negative 1 over 2. So the slope of the line passing through those 2 points is negative 1/2.